Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today game number 13 was played in the World Championship title match between the world champion Dean Lejeune from China and the current challenger from India, Gukesh de So in game number 13, a lot of actions happened. If you missed the game for whatever reason, it's the right time to follow my recap. So before we jump to the game, just real quick information about the Chessify platform. These guys offering amazing tools for your chess improvement, mainly cloud databases and cloud engines. That's the thing I'm using mostly, but also a lot of other stuff. Feel free to check it on their website. You can find the referral link in the description for this video, and using a promo code MESHKOVS20 you can get a 20% off for your first purchase. Let's go to the game. So Gukesh played his last game with white in this match, at least in a classical segment of the match, and he played one e4. That was sort of expected, because Ding traditionally played e6 in this match, and yeah, probably it's the best trying to put more pressure in the very main line, as after d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, e5 is the very main main move, and after knight fd7, Gukesh one more time tried this setup with knight ce2. So the point of this move is that, first of all, it's not the main move. You're sort of deviating from the very main path. But after c3 and knight c6, you can still transpose to sort of the mainstream theory, because here white has two major plans. Either it's knight f3, which is an absolutely mainstream move, and after that, yeah, you have oceans of theory and theoretical finesses. And also f4 is something that is possible for white. I'll remind you, for those who already forgotten, that f4 was played in game 1 and Gukesh lost that game dramatically. So in this game number 11, after black plays knight c6, Gukesh tries a completely different setup. He plays a3, a move that barely exists on the top level chess, and yeah, it came as a first quite big surprise for Ding, and he invested sort of almost 20 minutes to understand, to build up his strategy. And after 17 minutes, he plays bishop e7, very logical move. But as soon as he plays bishop e7, another bishop enters the game, and Gukesh simply blitzes out bishop e3 in a matter of seconds. So here, Ding has no time to for any even short rest, and bishop e3 already comes as a official novelty. So it's very much different from what you see normally, because if white pushes f4, then their play is very simple. They want to finish development and then push on the king side. While this bishop e3 has a completely different setup. Let's say if black would make a short castle, then the main point of this bishop e3 sort of waiting move is that white wants to play knight f4 and put pressure on e6 pawn. You may say that, hold on, but the e6 pawn is guarded. Yeah, right, but there's a problem, because one of the major ideas, absolutely main ideas in the French defense, is to play f6. And now this f7 pawn is pretty much glued to defense. And even though black is very stable here, but let's say after a move like queen b6, white can just shut down the game on the queen side, and after c4 they can, claim that all the enemy minor and actually major pieces as well, they're stuck behind the wall of pawns, while white has a very relatively simple game on the king side, pushing pawns and attacking the king in the later phase of the game. So at this point, as the game is not very move by move, it's not dynamic, it's more of a strategical chess, positional chess. You have to come up with ideas and the direction of your game. So at this point, Ding invested significant amount of time. He thought for almost 40 minutes here to make a move. 37 minutes to be precise. And finally, he came up with this knight b6, not the sort of top engine line, but he has a very clear idea. So he tries to come with a knight to c4, and after knight f4, he trades on d4 and then plays knight c4, which leads to a game where white has to fight back, has to take that, eliminate the knight on c4, and then either bring the queen to g4 with the tempo, or make some more positional move like knight g2. Apparently, queen g4 was a bit better, but we can say it's only because we have the luxury of analyzing position with the engine, while players have to come up with ideas over the board. And well, who can say without the engine what happens here after black sacrifices a pawn on g7 and everything is hanging out? I have no clue, for instance. And well, yeah, I think Gukesh in a post-game interview said that he saw that move, but he did not really consider it and thought that knight g2 is way simpler. And well, you just finish development, you bring your king to safety, and then you like play a game. So Ding played quite ambitiously here. He could have started with a move like short castle or maybe f6, undermining this pawn chain, but instead he went for a very energetic move, b5. And afterwards, both sides made short castles. So at this point, we can conclude that white got some dynamic advantage after the opening, and so both sides made castles, but they have a bit of better developed pieces, and also some better control in the center and some d5 ideas maybe in the later stage of the game. But white's only dynamic advantage, not strategic or static advantage. The reason behind that is that first of all, black also has something to be proud of. First of all, they have a bishop pair, and they have also some space advantage on the queen side of the board. So if you're very slow at this point, playing with white, then it could become a problem once black finishes development fully and brings their pieces to the active squares. Also worth mentioning that at this point, Gukesh has a significant time advantage, 1 hour 40 minutes against 50 minutes only. So, well, quite a huge lead, 50 minutes, and it's only move 13. So he plays knight c3, sort of very healthy move, hitting the pawn and also like improving some d5 control over the d5 square, maybe preparing this d5 one day. Black plays rook b8, and then Gukesh continues expanding on the king side with knight h5. So attaching his knight to that potentially weak g7 pawn, and yeah, at this point, position is, it's it's boiling, and at any moment it could just explode basically. And here is an interesting moment. So I followed the live commentaries and also checked the computer evaluation and suggestion. So both commentators and silicon machine suggests king h8, queen g4, and rook g8, and defend this g7 square in a passive way. However, I don't know. To me, this looks very weird to play like this, because you um, go like full defensive mode. While during the game, I also thought that f5 is very much in the spirit of the position, and that's what I would play as well, because basically throughout the match, I can say that I managed to get what players gonna do. But this was the moment when it was pretty obvious to me that f5 is something that you want to do in order to fight for space and show to your opponent that you're not going to play passively. So ef6 is pretty much must played move, because otherwise black is doing pretty well. And after bishop f6, we can conclude that the character of the fight is sort of changed a little bit, because black has bishop pair, don't forget about that, and position opens a bit, so which in general has to be in black's favor. And yeah, this is a very dynamic fight where you have to generate active play and fight for the initiative. Otherwise, you will just end up being on the passive side. So Gukesh plays queen f3, sort of active move, and here once again, in such a dynamic situation, queen f3 is a fine move, and thanks to accessibility to the engines, we know that we just check what computers suggest to do, and we know that knight d4 is sort of the move you have to make. But let me show you one example why it's so difficult for those players, even though one of the best players in the world, to make this decision over the board. Because something what you consider at first after knight takes d4, which is the strongest move and the move that was skipped by the world champion. Probably white just neutralizes this one bishop. So you can take with the queen, because this is just hangs a piece in one move. Queen takes f6 and bishop takes d4. So you have to take with the rook. And after a move like, let's say, queen d1, you have to... So rook f6 is already the only move to make in the position. And here you have to foresee that e5 is the only move as well. And you have to sort of allow this bishop g5 pin, sacrifice an exchange, and already being in this situation, you have to see that you have either bishop b7 or bishop f5. You have sufficient compensation for the pawn, for the exchange, and the position is quite promising for black. But first of all, yeah, it takes time to understand all of that. And I remind that Ding was already down to 50 minutes. At this point, he was already down to maybe about 40 minutes. Or even a little bit less. And, you know, it takes time. It's not so easy to understand all of these finenesses of the position. So he makes a healthy move, queen e8, which apparently is not the most precise, but okay. I think that queen e8 also is sort of very much in the nature of this fight. And by the way, also, I wanted to mention that this f5 and in general structure, it very resembles me the Vienna game, and yeah, the line that is very popular with d takes c4 and move 4. So it has very similar structure, and there you also sometimes play f5. So I would play literally the same. So, and Ding mentioned that after knight takes f6, rook takes f6, he sort of um, underestimated queen e2. He thought only about queen e4, and then indeed black has bishop b7 with a potential knight jump somewhere and a huge counterplay on the long diagonal. But instead, Gukesh played some flawless chess in this phase of the game because after queen g6, he made a very classy move, f3, stopping this bishop and any sort of activity on the along the f file, along the long diagonal, and so on. So pretty much world champion try to, improve pieces a little bit, while Gukesh made better improvements in his position. And while Ding tried to relocate their pieces, Gukesh had a very impressive tactical vision, and he used every single opportunity. And here he found a, well, I can call it a brilliance, but certainly an impressive move. Bishop f4, hitting the rook. You can't take because of double attack queen e5. So world champion sidestepped with the rook, but then Gukesh still harasses that rook once again, and after rook goes back, he plays bishop d6, pinning the knight and putting more pressure. So black has to sidestep with the rook, wasting another move for dealing with this activity. And yeah, pretty much so far we can conclude that Gukesh seizes the initiative very well. And also he puts a lot of pressure on Ding because, yeah, he has a way better placed pieces and more harmonious position. So he has the momentum overall. And also he keeps a better control over the time management. So he's up 10 minutes after move 24, 30 minutes against 20. But here, although he did not play in the most precise way, but he has chosen a very practical approach. So he neutralized this knight on e7, and after rook e7, every single move he made here in the next segment of the game was with the idea to put pressure on your opponent. So he played it very dynamically, and while he has an active knight, the enemy minor piece is very passive and has no bright future yet, but you never know what happens next. So Gukesh plays queen e5, trying to snowball the initiative, putting some pressure on b5. After a6, he advances in the center and creates another threat of playing d5, d6, and create a protected passer in the center. And so Ding has to react. He neutralizes this pawn, but after that, queen takes d5, harasses the king. And Ding has to defend with a queen e6, and then he sidesteps once again, creating another threat, rook d6, harassing the queen, and then rook d8 with a double attack, winning some material. So Ding, once again, he's always on the defensive side. Let's not forget he's under a huge time pressure as well. So here Gukesh is in a think tank for 6 minutes, and then he founds this impressive resource, rook d1. And this was, I'm not even sure how many times in a row he attacked his opponent's position in a row. But this was pretty critical moment when his initiative and his power play sort of almost led to not almost led to moment where Ding misplayed the position. So he had to accept this trade, and after king f2 retreat back to e8 to protect the bishop. But here, after knight e4, it would be so difficult to defend against this family fork knight d6, and everything is hanging. And also queen d5 puts more pressure on the king. And if I'm not mistaken, the only defense is rook e7, then attack queen and play a rook e6. So, I mean, it's really tough to do, really tough, especially having no time. I think it would be, objectively, it's the best defense, but you're definitely playing with the fire, and if it's the only salvation for black, then I would feel really bad for the world champion. So instead, Ding, after rook d1, played queen f7, a very human and natural move, and this was a golden opportunity for Gukesh once again. And here, in a post-game interview, he mentioned that his first intention was to take on e8 and play knight e4. And this would lead to a technically winning position for him. Once again, this family fork motif on d6 is pretty much the nutshell of the position and white's advantage. And still, it would require white to make a bunch of precise moves in order to keep this winning advantage, sort of dynamic advantage. But yeah, it would be the best try. While instead of that, after queen f7, he immediately played knight e4. And although this was my top choice as well during the game, because I saw that the same family fork motif works, seemed to work even better, because black has this additional rook on e8, but apparently there is a defense, and well, full credit to the world champion. In such moments, you understand why he is there, and it's not by an accident, because Ding having only 8 minutes in this moment for almost 10 moves, he spent about half of his time going below 5 minutes to make 8 more moves, and he finds the absolutely only move to stay in the game, to maintain the balance, and this is rook f8. It's a very difficult move because after knight d6, you have to foresee another only move, rook c7, with the idea that after knight f7 we're trading queens, and sort of without queens, black is doing fine. But after queen e5, if white keeps their pieces in the center, then queen f6 is the move. So the point is that why it's so difficult to see this rook f8 move, because after queen d5 check, king h8 is the only move. From afar behind, you may see knight e8 and stop the line. But here, luckily, black has this queen b6 motif going away from that fork and playing rook d7. And all in all, once again, this knight on e8 is misplaced. Black is doing fine, and after queen d4, he is taking over. Very impressive play by the world champion. What should I say else? Queen f6 was played, king h8 was played, and Gukesh tried to sort of centralize his pieces and keep this positional grip in the center. Ding was under time pressure all the time. It's move 35. He plays rook e5. Gukesh still maintains this grip in the center, takes. He plays h6, creating a luft for the king, because white doesn't have any threat so far. And after queen c5, he sidesteps with a bishop. And after knight e4, he sidesteps once again the only move. But active and very logical, eyeing to get some counterplay on the first rank against the enemy king. So rook e7 was played on move 40, and after bishop f5, pretty much both players got half an hour after this nerve-wracking battle, and yeah, here we can say that the worst is is in the past for the world champion. But the game is not over, and Gukesh played queen d4 once again, putting pressure on g7. Still, he is rather ambitious, and he's doing not only attacking but also some defensive task on d4. So it's a very useful queen over there. Rook g8 has to be played, and h3 was played by Gukesh. So here, after a bit of a thought, Ding plays queen c1, and normally you would expect, like, if someone plays h3, creating a loft for the king, then most likely you want to, after queen c1 check, you want to go king h1. And this is hidden draw offer number 1. We have to add some sound here, like cling. And after queen c1, guess what? Of course, Gukesh declines. He does not play king h2, and he could have repeated the position and say that, okay, enough for today. Tomorrow is game 14. Let's have some rest. No way. Gukesh declines this hidden draw offer and plays king f2. So Ding says, okay. He eliminates this very powerful knight in the center and makes a very, very classy decision. I want to point out because indeed it deserves attention, and it's a very powerful strategy, because pretty much this is another hidden draw offer. Someone add a sound at this point. So after c3, b takes c3 was played in the game, but the draw offer was about queen takes c3, queen takes c3, b c3, and the key move is rook c8. So black sacrificed the pawn temporarily, but the point is that it's not even a pawn sacrifice, because even if white plays rook e6, you can sidestep with a pawn, and if you go rook b6, then I collect 2 pawns, and it's just a drawn ending. While if you try to retreat with a rook to e3 defending the pawn, then another key element of this line is rook c4, and there's no way to stop rook a4, rook a3, and once again the balance is on the board. But yeah, so Gukesh once again shown his fighting spirit and his will to fight till the end, and he takes with the pawn. Queen takes a3, and he plays king g3. So you can say that, okay, what is this king g3 move? But the only way how to generate some mating threat against the black king is to play rook e6. But then black has this double attack. The only way how to not to lose the rook is to retreat back with the rook to e2, and then queen retreats back as well. So it's like a very balanced position. But Gukesh plays king g3, sort of improves his king's safety, and after queen b3, Ding tries to prevent this rook to enter on the 6th rank. Gukesh plays rook e7 and sort of keeps this dominating position on the field, because both of his major pieces are placed better than the enemy pieces. So Ding has something to answer with, and his main trump in this position is his a-pawn. So this a-pawn potentially could run very quickly. But as soon as Ding moves his a-pawn, rook b7 was played, and now pawn on b5 becomes sort of more vulnerable. So once again, hidden draw offer number 3 by Ding. He plays queen c4 and offers trading queens. And in this case, you can say, hold on, like takes. Why can't I play, for instance, rook a7, simply collecting a5 pawn? Well, true, but in this case, black generates some play against the c3 pawn. And once again, we're leading to drawn rook ending. Alternatively, after takes, you could go rook c7 and try to collect the c4 pawn. But in this case, black's main trump is running very fast, and after rook c4, a4, rook has to stop the pawn in the very, very last moment. But having such a pawn on a2 should be enough to maintain a balance in the game. But once again, Gukesh tries to keep this fighting spirit, and he improves position of his queen. So queen on e5, once again, is very much centralized, and it's very multifunctional. First of all, it puts some pressure on both targets, g7 and b5 pawns. Secondly, it controls all the entry squares like e1, e2, and e3. Also, it keeps some f4 square, and it just dominates the field together with the rook. So Ding finds this very nice rook queen c6 move, attacking the rook. And the point is that after rook takes b5, once again, he wants to use his a pawn as the main trump. And if white tries to stop this pawn, then after rook a5, he plays rook a8. And, well, at this point, I would be even maybe a little bit optimistic about my chances playing with black, because there's no clear way how to stop this a pawn from advancing further. So that's why after queen c6, Gukesh sort of had to accept inevitable trades, and he took on b5. Ding captures on c3, and Gukesh wants to collect the pawn. So queen e1 was played, king h2, and at this point there is no way how to protect this a5 pawn, but Ding makes a very classy move, queen b4, sort of forcing trades. And after rook b7, yes, he's going to be down a pawn, but all in all, we have traded so much material that only 3 against 2 on the white side, on the one side of the board is left, and this is known as a theoretical draw. So he looks for an activity, and everything he has to do is just keep an eye on this pawn on g2. The game plan is very simple. You keep your rook active on the second rank. You're keeping an eye on this g2 pawn. You don't want to push your pawns anywhere for whatever reason. You just you stay solid, and you claim that at some point white will run up out of ideas. So that's what pretty much happened in the game, because after some general improvements, black is just waiting, throwing a check, once again keeping an eye on this pawn, and pretty much just chilling, because sooner or later, but if white plays h5, we're waiting, and king is glued to defensive task, while after f5, the thing what was played in the game, h5 was played by Ding, and this runs to either another trade which favors black a lot, either it runs to king f4, and this time there is no way how to avoid threefold repetition, and the game ends in a draw. What an impressive defense by Ding, um, defending world champion. That's the theme of this episode, and I have to say that I'm very impressed by Ding, by his way of maintaining the balance in a critical moment, and yeah, looking forward to see what happens in the final game of the classical segment of the match. It starts tomorrow, the same time. World champion going to play with white. Um, Challenger will defend with black. Thank you very much for your attention. See you soon.